Hello everyone, Argsy here. Welcome along to a little tutorial on how to automate your grape harvest. Now, obviously this will be PC only. There's two mods we're going to be using mainly, and they are PC only, unfortunately. So, if you're on console, you are going to be stuck with having to do this all manually, and you might enjoy that. But for me, if we can automate a little bit of this process, let's give it a go and see if we can make it work. Now, the two mods you're going to need here that I'm using, GPS and AutoDrive, and you'll see why we need to do that shortly. But you'll see I've got a lineup here of the different tractors we can use, the four different here, the Ridgy track, we've got the methane powered New Holland, the Fent, the Landini there as well, all set up with the different equipment we need to grow and maintain our grapes to get our best yield possible. So we're on Holt Baileron, and we're here next to the dealer. We've got the field here, number 43, which I haven't actually purchased yet, so we better do that before we go ahead and place anything. I'm going to start off by obviously putting some grapevines down. Now, I'm going to do it in the long direction. You understand why. The method we're going to use here, I think, will be much better suited to doing this in the long direction, because it basically minimizes the number of turns we have to do at each end. And for me, that is the most complicated part that I have come across when trying to make this method as smooth as possible. Now, it's not foolproof. It is not designed specifically for doing this. So it will take some trial and error, and others might have other ways to set this up. But it is a way I've practiced, I've tested out, and found works quite well to get everything, including the harvester, running along a course and doing all of the work automatically, so you can sit back and sip on your grape juice or whatever other byproduct you might make from your grapes. So we'll get some grapes planted in here, and we'll get started on it. One thing to bear in mind, I'm just about to start placing here. I'm not going to go the full length of the field because I'm not doing this for efficiency. I'm doing this as a demonstration to show you what my idea is and how I think it might help to make the grape and olive processing a little bit more bearable. I know it's quite tedious when you do want to make a maximize your profit, so to speak. It takes a lot of manual work. You can't hire workers or anything like that. So one thing to bear in mind when you are placing your vines, make sure you leave enough space at the end of your field, a headland if you would, for another description, obviously to allow for turning. So we've got plenty of space down here where you can see me standing and on the track to turn, and we'll leave some space in the field. Now, we're obviously going to make the most of having this snap to the direction. Now, obviously it doesn't snap here, and one thing we do want to try and do is get our grapes as close to a 180 or a fixed angle as we can. So you can see there's no easy way to do that because it doesn't snap. Obviously we've got the benefit that it does snap afterwards, but to be able to best do this technique, I think it's important to try and snap. So I'm actually going to come over here and place our first grape right as close to the edge as I can, because I know this field edge is at 90 degrees using the heading down in the minimap down the bottom there. So we're just going to run down, I think about there will do for this trial. Now we'll zoom in here. We will be able to get the grapes to snap. That new grape feature that Giants did add, much requested, and you can see there we are running parallel to our other vines. So I'm just going to quickly put down half a dozen or so passes here, or rows of vines, and then we'll get started on setting this all up. Alright, and there we go. We have got 10 rows of vines there, which I think will be a good number to be able to demonstrate this method to you the best. So now that we've got them planted and growing, we need to go and grab one of the tractors to set up our GPS course, and then we will take that course and set up an AutoDrive route. So let's go and get that sorted. We'll start off with the Ridgy track. It is the wider tractor. One reason actually, well, there's a couple of reasons I've decided to use this tractor to start off with. One being a bit wider, I think I can probably position it a bit closer to the vines, so therefore I can get it centered just that little bit better, because obviously having the GPS course centered is going to be a key requirement here to get this as tight and accurately set up as possible. So I think there's probably quite a good position to be relatively centered in between the vines. Now we can check that, and I will show you how we're going to do that. Right now, we turn our GPS on and bring up the screen here. What I'm going to use, instead of using the AB method, I'm actually going to go in here and use the A+ heading. Now click set A point, and that is going to be your start point, and then it brings up this option to use desired cardinal and degrees. I'm going to set this to 90, and I'll show you why in just a second. Now with that set, I'm just going to jump out of here very quickly. You can see in the minimap, if I bring that up down there, the tractor's pretty much pointing at 89.7. Now the way Giants build the maps, this will be, if I just adjust it there, that's 90 degrees, and we will be pretty much parallel with the vines. And that was why when we planted them, it was important to get them running parallel with the edge of that field. I haven't found a better way to get them planted on that angle. If anyone has come up with an option or a way to do that, please leave a comment down below so we can share that around the community. But with that set up, the next piece of the puzzle is to come in here and set our width. Now if we auto width, and I'm going to turn the lines on, with that auto width set, that's set to the width of the implement. So if we just drive forward a little bit, you can see our blue lines are nowhere near the width of the vines. Now we need to be basically adjusting that width so that the blue lines are on centered along the vines. So if we just come back in here again, we're going to bump that width up, and from what I've been playing around with, the optimum width is about 9, sorry, gone one too far. Come back into here, we'll bump this back down. 9.86 was about the optimum, so if we just play around there, we can get to 9.88. I think that should be good. Now if we come back out here, you can see our blue line there is pretty much through the center of the post on that side, and just a little bit to the left on that side. So I think we just need to move the tractor over ever so slightly. The reason that being, and I will show you now, we go down to the other side and have a look at how these all line up, because we want this GPS course to be lined up pretty much perfectly the whole way across the vines. So there, we'll just spin around because it was easier to see from the other direction. You can see our course is just a little bit out on that side and a little bit inside there. So we weren't quite set up as centered as we could be. So I'm going to go back and we will just tweak that a little bit more. Obviously, the more accurate we can get this now, the better our course is going to be once we get it set up. So I'll just tweak that, and I'll be back with you in just a second. And there we go. So you can see I've tweaked it. We've got the blue line there almost in the center of the post and pretty much in the same point on that side. We'll go and take a look on the other end and see how that is set up down there as well. And there we go. You can see we're pretty much in exactly the same spot on the post on that side, and pretty much exactly the same spot in the post on that side as well. So you can see we've got that pretty much perfect. Now one thing I did change. I think I said before 9.88. I've changed that down to 9.84. So it might just take some playing around with to get that set correctly. Right, after rolling backwards a little bit. Now the next step is to use AutoDrive. We are going to set a network of routes that run through and around the vines. Now I am going to start on the outside. Now the reason I'm going to start on the outside is so you can mulch on this side, and it just allows us to turn. Now you might not need to, but it's better off to cover off everything. Again though, I suppose we could run along here manually. You don't have to cover everything, but for this I am going to do as much as I can to cover off what we can automatically without having to drive it on our own. So with GPS enabled, I'm going to bring up the AutoDrive dialog, and if I come down here and press the triangle to record a route, I'm very simply just going to hit record here, and we're going to drive along. Now don't go too fast because you don't want to lose control or anything silly like that. We are on GPS obviously, so it's not going to be too dangerous, but we're just going to head along here and get to the end. Now this is where I was saying earlier, make sure you allow enough turning space, because we want to make a big turn and get turned back. Now we're not going to turn straight back on our previous course or on our next vine. We're actually going to skip over. Now this is a mode. If you've used Courseplay, you might recognize it as the racetrack mode. I'm going to come back down that vine there. We hit our GPS line. We can head down here. So we're going to use this similar mode to racetrack. Now I'll quickly put this on a short little time lapse as you watch me get this course set up, and we'll be back very soon to look at the next phase. Alright, and there we go. We've finished effectively that course. Now I'm going to bring it out this way and just take it to an end point. And we do need to label this because this will be what we use as our destination. So let's just pop in here into AutoDrive, create a target, and we're going to call this Grape End. Pretty simple. And we can stop recording now because we have our start and our end point. So that was about all we need to do. Now obviously we haven't done that outside row. We've done 5 runs in each direction. So to get the outside row we really need to have an odd number of rows of vines. 9 vines would have been enough. With the 10 we've had that odd number of passes. So again, run up it manually or just make some calculations when you're setting things out. So with that all done, I'm going to turn off the GPS because we don't need that anymore. Here we go, got rid of those lines. Now if we just come up here to the start point, we need to lower the cultivator, put that into the ground there. It's probably going to tell us we don't own the land or something like that. And now with that done, we can hit the target of Grape End and we're going to press go. And this will start running up and down our vines, mulching in between each one. Now we're going to come in here. I am going to adjust the speed on this manually. I have found that slowing it down is probably going to be the best option. So it might take a little bit longer than it needs to. We've got a calculation there, 4.5 minutes or so to do this. But as you can see there, we've left a nice wide arc, just watching the tractor follow around there, and it will come down and get pretty much lined up there again on the next pass. So that, as you can see, was why I've left quite a bit of space at the end. Now one tip, if you were to use just the methane powered tractor, the 2-track tractor, it can turn a lot tighter and probably get set up and aligned much better than these tractors can. So if you wanted to reduce the amount of turning space you had at each end, that could be an option as well. But it's as simple as that. That is us getting a course set up here to run all our equipment up and down on an AutoDrive course. So let's just turn off that edit and let's just watch here for a little bit while it runs up and down. In fact, I'm going to go get the other equipment set up and have them all going at the same time. Obviously it doesn't look quite right because our grapes aren't growing or anything like that, but it will show you how all 4 pieces of equipment, other than the harvester, because we need to do something different for that, other than the harvester, how it all will work. So let's go and get those running as well. Just as we're setting off here at the end, you can see we've got the mower running up there, got the cultivator in the centre. I'm going to bring the course up again here. Now one other tip is if you put a start point on there, grape start, you can actually see when this isn't turned off, you get that visual marker down on the start here. Of course, if I'm in the wrong position, and I'll show you an example, it's going to try and start off on the red line. So when the piece of equipment is pointing there, it's going to try and run down the second pass. So you do need to make sure you're starting it off in the right spot. So if I had an AutoDrive course that said go to Grape Start, we would know it got to that start point. But now we can hit Grape End. We know it's going to start there because it's pointing to the red one. Let's hit go on that. Now of course, before we do that, we do need to turn the sprayer on. So we'll hit go there. You see we are spraying, putting our fertilizer on. Obviously you could do the same for herbicide, and we want to slow that speed down or we are going to get this done really quickly. So let's bump those back down as well. So there we go, we've got all 4 pieces of equipment running. Now I thought I'd show you the trimmer because it does, even though we don't have any leaves on there, it is, you can see they're popping around each post. So it would be pruning the grapes once they've been harvested. So that is all 4 pieces of equipment that you need for grapes running on an automated course. Very simple to set up. That has literally taken me 20 minutes to do. Now, obviously you can see and understand probably the reason why I said at the start, do big long runs. Because the longer the run is, the less turns you have and the more area you can cover. So I think in this field I would certainly be putting the grapes down in the longest distance and minimising the amount of turns we have at the end. But there we go, all running seamlessly. Of course, with AutoDrive you can go in and edit some points. One thing I did discover when I was testing this is if I turned too soon, the tractor didn't quite get lined up straight on the next pass. So there you can almost see it a little bit, the tractor was a little bit left of the course. Hence, in this version, as I've recorded this, I have shown it being further forward than, or the turns, sorry, being further out than they might have otherwise been. But I think that's not a bad little trick to learn. So we'll let these guys all finish, get out of the way, and then we'll show you how I have set up the harvester using pretty much exactly the same technique. But before we do that, I just thought I'd ride along here with the Argsy track as it gets to the very last pass, and you'll see why I moved the end course out a little bit further away from the end of the grapes, because he'll now, or she will now, drive along here and go and park out of the way of the other tractors. So if you did have more than one working, you can go and fire them down there. Now of course, you don't have to start a course right at the start. So if you had a really big grape vineyard, you could actually record a single course going up and down each one, and then start tractors or harvesters or whatever you want off at a midpoint. And when the other one catches up, you can stop them manually. So there is other ways to do this on a larger and grander scale. I'm just doing this in a small scale to show you the proof of concept for automating your grape harvest. Alright, we'll let them run out and then we'll go and get the harvester set up. So we've moved time forward a few months and you will see we have some nice juicy bunches of grapes there hanging on our vines. So it's time to get the harvester out. Now I will go and pick it up. We'll go and set up a course for this as well to do exactly the same thing we were just doing with the equipment. The only difference, we're going to have to straddle the vines rather than running down in between them. So let's go and get that set up. Right, so we've gone and got the grape harvester. We'll get it unfolded, get it lifted up there, it makes it a little bit easier. Now, one other thing I have discovered while doing this, it's easier, I find, to have the vines running up and down a hill rather than across a hill. Now when I tested this first, I did it going this way, and you can see the slope of the hill here is left to right. Now when you've placed vines on that, and I might just actually quickly put one down here, you'll see that there's a bit of a slope on those vines. If we just put that there, we'll just very quickly, we don't need a whole heap. We've just put those in there. You'll notice that they're vertical, however the ground is still on a slope. So when the harvester straddles them, it's not straddling them at right angles. So it just made it a little bit more likely to get caught on this, because if you can imagine the harvester's on a bit of a slope down there, but hard to draw, and you're not quite centered, you're not going to work. It is reasonably forgiving, there is a little bit of tolerance in there, but not a whole heap. So I found if you can go up and down a hill rather than across a hill so that your ground and posts are more at 90 degrees, you will get a better result. Just another little thing to think about. Now, we're going to do exactly the same thing we did with the tractors, which is using GPS. We'll set up a course and then we will use AutoDrive to record that course. But of course, we're going to be straddling the grapes. So let's go ahead and set up that same GPS course using the same width that we had before. So there we go, we've got our course set. We've also set our 9.84 feet wide. Now, just learnt a little trick there, which I'm going to share with you. You start off at 0 and then do your width increment in 3 widths, 3.28. Do that 3 times, you'll get to the 9.84 feet. Now, I haven't done the maths, but I think that 3.2 feet would equal 1 metre. 9.84 feet, 3 times that, 3 metres, which would tell me that the vines, the way giants have got them snapping, are 3 metres apart. Now someone might be able to confirm that, and it might be something I haven't picked up before, but that seems to have set it up very well. So now that we've got our GPS course there, obviously the critical point for this one is getting that A point over the top of the vines. Now if we just zoom in here, we'll be able to see I'm a little bit to the left of the vines, so I might just try and get that a little bit closer, and even if we drive in a little bit further, you can see I've managed to get the first of the vines into the harvester. So let's just try and set that up to just get it a little bit more accurate. And there we go. Now you can see that that white line is going through the center of the post. So long as our width is correct, which I believe it is, we should be good to go. So I'm now going to back us up here. We need to snap onto that GPS course and come even further back. Oops, watch out for our previous placed vines. I don't think that's going to be a problem. We should be able to turn in that space. No worries. We did it with the tractor. We should be able to do it with the harvester. If we open AutoDrive, we're just going to go through, bring up the record course. Now obviously there's a lot of information in there because we've already got some courses recorded. We don't want to be snapping to that point as a start point, or you can turn off the settings in there when you create a new path. There should be a setting in here somewhere to auto connect start. There we go. We'll set that to no. Apply, and then we won't get an auto connect on those triggers, so it doesn't matter where we are. We should be able to hit record, and you can see our red dot is down there underneath. So with GPS active, I'm going to head off and run this harvester over top of all these vines. Now I could be harvesting while we're doing this, and you might want to the first time you do it, but I think we can probably run faster across it without, and we won't be able to demonstrate how it all works if I was to do it that way. So let's go and get this all sorted out. And then we have finished recording our course for the harvester. So we're just going to do the same as we did with the tractors and just pull it off to the side here a little bit. Once we get to an end point, it looks like a good little spot. We will give that a label, and we will call that grape harvest end. And we'll know that that is the end of our grape harvester. So let's turn that recording off. Head back up and over to the start. We'll obviously give the start point a name as well, and then we'll set this going and see how it all goes. Alright, there we go, grape harvest start. So if we pick our grape harvest end, I'm going to bump the speed down on this. Not sure what speed this actually harvests at when it's running normally, but we're going to put it at 6 miles per hour there. Let's not turn the engine off, we want to turn the harvester on. There we go, that is up and running. So let's press go. We're going to turn that off, and let's see along here. Don't need our GPS on anymore either. Let's see if we start harvesting some grapes. There we are. Grapes are disappearing, and we're starting to get some grapes up here in the harvester. Now I still feel that might be a little bit faster than it should be running. I'm just going to bump that down a little bit further as well. Try it at 4 miles per hour, but things are running in perfectly. Almost lined up as well as you could. I don't think I could drive it that straight. Let's see how it goes on one of the ends. So we've got a nice wide turn here and getting back lined up with the next vine. Let's just watch it from the front, see how it goes with lining up. A bit of a bump there, but it has managed to get itself lined up. So that might be an opportunity there. If we just pause or press stop, and I'm just going to back up here and take a look at the course and figure out what might have caused that. So it is looking like it was in quite a nice line. I think it's just the turning on the end, so there's nothing much else I can do with that. It seemed to turn around okay. Maybe just going a little bit slower on the approach into the vines to try and get a few more red dots, but otherwise it did manage to get onto it, so not too bad a result at all. Now I'm going to try something when we get down to the bottom end here and see how it all works. I'm just going to stop the first harvester there. I've actually gone and just leased a second harvester. So what I want to just demonstrate is how we could set this up running on a parallel course at the same time. So we'll just leave that there for now. Head on over here. Our store deliveries has delivered the harvester to the field. We'll go get this all unfolded and get it running on another one of the courses. So I'm going to set this here, and basically we've got 4 more passes on each side left, so we'll do 2 and 2 on each harvester. Now we need to set this here to grape harvest end, pronounce that correctly. Now it gets a little bit tricky when you're in here trying to find which target it is snapped to. Now we need to make sure that red dot right there is pointing to the red line, because that will tell us that AutoDrive is finding that point on the course to start from. So with that one all set up, we're just going to hop back in the other one, set it going first because we want it to make a bit of a head start so that we don't have a crash when we're turning up on the top end, and then we'll set this second one going as well. So here we are, they're back underway. We're going to bump these speeds down to 4 to match the first harvester. We've just got a little warning there. Often I find when it gets to something like that, it might just need a little bit of a move to be able to find where it needs to be. And fortunately we hadn't actually turned this on, so it wasn't actually running. Here we are, just going to move up to this next red dot and see if we can send that on its way there. And we're off, so it just needed a little bit of a recalculation to get on the right course. So we'll just ride along here watching this one while we can see the other one making its turn up on the top end and see if it can get back over the vines correctly. A little bit of a bump there you might have noticed, but otherwise lining up pretty well. So there we go, we've managed to automate our harvest. You can imagine if we had this whole field full of grapes, if we took the time to record a course over the whole lot. Like I said, I've been recording this for 45 minutes, this episode, or tutorial, and it hasn't taken too long at all to get everything set up and going and working all on its own. So watching here as they come around and turn up, they've actually done almost a better job than the other one. Spoke too soon. There we are, a little bit of a stick. But they've carried on, so it did manage to power past that little bit of a blockage. But there we go. This is my guide, or a bit of a tutorial, using the mods we have available to us. Remember, we're not even 2 months into the game to be able to set up an automated grape harvest. So I hope that has helped you. Might encourage you more to get involved with some olives or grapes. Possibly even some coffee if I have seen some mods that are on the horizon coming out soon, so keep an eye out for that. But please leave a comment down below if that's helped, if you've got any other tips that might be useful for doing something like this. That is all for me for now. Thank you all very much for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.